Alright, so we've come a long way from bartering for food or clothes with crops that we've grown in our backyards or fields. The last time that you all have probably paid for anything expensive or something that costs a lot of money has probably been a while, right? That's because debit cards and credit cards have become the primary source of payment for everyday items and expensive luxuries. The history of plastic goes a lot farther back than you probably would think, back to the early 1900s. The popularity and simplicity of having something in your back pocket to pay for your everyday goods and items pretty much spurred the way for making other methods of payment possible. And still today, the payments industry is growing and evolving into a way that we're only predicting how it's going to change the way we pay for stuff in the future. But to understand how we're here right now, we have to go back a little bit and look at how it all started. So for the idea of credit has been around for a long time. The regular high class individual didn't want to carry around a lot of cash in their back pocket and pay for hundreds of dollars worth of items everywhere they went, at expensive restaurants, fancy boutiques, anything like that. So what a couple of department stores started was the idea of being able to walk into a store, put your name down on a ledger, get a bill for the clothes that you buy, to go to a fancy restaurant, put your name down for a lot of food or drinks that you buy, and they bill you at the end of the month for it. Now, while that seems pretty commonplace today, i.e. credit cards, back then that was pretty unheard of. So the caveat to that is that it would only go from that specific place that you went to. So you can't have like a group of a group of restaurants or a group of department stores that would, put it all together and send a bill to you every month. So in 1942, the Flatbush National Bank of Brooklyn, New York came up with the Charge It card, which was the predecessor to your regular everyday credit card. Now, still, it's not the easiest thing to use because you would have to use it in a 2 square mile radius of the bank. Instead of going to Walmart down the street, 3 miles down the road, to Target, anywhere else, you could only use it within 2 square miles because a representative from that establishment had to go and drop the ledger off at the end of every night in order to compile the books at the end of the month to send you your bill at the end of the month. And some places charge as high as 7% for that stuff. So what another group of people did is create the Diners Club, which I don't know if you all have heard of that, but that was still featured prominently on doors to establishments that said DC on there. It said Diners Club. It still was an accepted card up until about 10 years ago. In its first year, they had 330 restaurants participating with over 42,000 cardholders, which was a lot more than your Charge It cards that you had before, or the people that could spend it within a 2 square mile radius of a bank branch. So the Diners Club kind of paved the way for your regular modern everyday credit card. But that all changed in around 1958 when Visa and MasterCard came into the play, which is something that everybody here is familiar with. So in 1958, Bank of America introduced the Bank AmeriCard. It was the first bank-backed credit card there ever was. So instead of just going off of you going into an establishment and flaunting your wealth and they just kind of trust you by name or basis or anything like that, they actually had your credit history and your money on file to know if you were actually worth them, as much money as you say you did, to where you could pay it off at the end of every month. Now, like how Diners Club was before, that balance was meant to be paid off at the end of every month instead of carried over like your normal everyday credit card is now. With Visa and MasterCard or the Bank AmeriCard before, they wanted to gain your interest off of it. They saw that the real money in this situation wasn't the balance that you carried or anything like that, it's how much you owed to that bank. Later on in 1976, Bank AmeriCard incorporated and became Visa. And now Visa is accepted in most countries and settled in 21 different currencies throughout the world. So a couple of different banks saw that as an opportunity to make even more money. So it became the ICA, which is the Interbank Card Association in 1966. Their platform card was called the MasterCharge, which in 1979 changed to MasterCard, which was the first card that was accepted and issued in the People's Republic of China, opening up even more of the global market that Visa and MasterCard had carved out before. Then, with the partnership of the Europay International, they created the first online debit program called Maestro, which, if you don't know about it, debit cards actually go through a different network than credit cards do. Credit is based off of your worth and faith, basically, while debit cards are focused on how much money you actually have in the bank. So, both are in extreme competition to this day, but they both represent a combined 79% of the US market share of credit and debit cards. Now, with that, competition breeds innovation. As technology and merchants have evolved, so has the way we accept payments. EMV, short for Europay, MasterCard, and Visa, as y'all know it, the chip that comes on your cards when you got like a new debit card or credit card like 5 or 6 years ago. It's a global standard for accepting payment. According to Chase Payment Tech's website, paying with EMV is much more secure than a magnetic strip. Sensitive information is easily taken from the magnetic strips on your card. They can put these things called strippers on your credit card terminal and take all of your personal information, the credit card, CVV code on the back, your address, your name, everything. With EMV, you have a dynamic value that's put into the chip, which makes it a lot harder to take that information. And then, with that, we also have the ability to pay with our phones. So we're going from paying for goods with goods to paying off our phone that we have on a finance plan with our phone by going up to the terminal and tapping it there. Apple Pay is the most prominent of this. You can accept it at Starbucks, McDonald's. I paid my bill with it earlier today for ComEd. And then there are others, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, Android Pay, and all that. But the desire of the consumer to simplify and make the payments more secure has driven multiple companies to innovate. Also, with the rise of cryptocurrency, we're going to see a lot more changes in the payments market. We're used to the idea of Bitcoin. You see it in the news all the time, but there are a lot of other cryptocurrencies out there with actual real-world applications. So they're being used for property ownership transfer. They're being used in healthcare a lot, but the simplest and probably best means that they're using it right now is for money transfer. So when you ACH debit someone out there in the world or pay your bill with your account number, usually it takes around 24 hours. With cryptocurrency and blockchain, it can be instantaneous. So instead of waiting on Venmo for you to receive your money, you click on the button, it goes into your bank account, it takes about a business day. Now you can actually receive your money in real time. As you see, your plastic in your wallet comes from a long series of events. It started with simple paper and pen ledgers and dropping off paper balances at banks. Then the big players and the banks stepped in and made it a universal commodity. It's developed, grown, and changed and continues to do so. So in the modern world, cash is no longer king, plastic is. Thank you.
Clap and hands!
Look at these.